I want you to hear this. When you don't have a vision, you will comply. Oh, man. Because we saw this happen during the pandemic, like leaders laid down. When you're not clear, you will comply. Without vision, people comply. They don't commit. Why? Because the only way to navigate pressure is because I see something else clearly. I'm not trying to figure out my health during a health crisis. I want to figure it out now. When the health crisis comes, I already got a vision. Well, I'm already operating on the system. What y'all saying I need to do? Yeah, I don't know about that. Where Dr. So-and-so said, yeah, Dr. So-and-so is a man who happened to have to get pardoned recently. Whew, man. I mean, like, what's my game plan? What is before it happens?
Let's lay your goals, let your greatness flow with inspirational perspective.
The topic that I have here is why so many people feel stuck right now. Now, I'm pulling this from conversations I've had with clients, with potential clients, with leaders in the business arena. But, so if you don't feel stuck, like, let me know. But the sentiment that seems to be expressed more often than not, I'm thinking about the client I spoke with Friday evening. Before I left the office, we had a quick chat. And, that was pretty much the sentiment, like trying to figure out like how to move in certain areas. And across the board, I've been noticing one theme that I believe has them stuck. And that's part of what I want to talk about today. Now, I also want to weave in part of what we've talked about over the past 9 weeks, I believe it was, right, in terms of leadership. But this time, I'm not just talking to anyone who identifies as a leader. I think we all should, but I get that we all don't. I want to talk to all of us in general around why do we feel stuck? Now, here's the other caveat, because a lot of people feel stuck right now. And if you don't feel stuck, I'd like to hear from you. Like, if you're making movement, I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to hear from you, like, your how. Like, or not so much the how, but your methodology, your formula. I have one, but I'm always open to others. And so if you're like, you got traction, you feel like you're really making headway. 2025 was an amazing year for you. You've crossed off numerous goals. If that's you, give me a phone call, 773-591-1690. I'd love to hear from you. I think we all love to hear from you. Because what I'm hearing is something different. Many people feel stuck right now. Now, and here's the caveat. It's not because they're failing, right? They're not failing. And so today what I want to do is explore what's really going on and what I believe actually helps people move forward in these uncertain times. This has been an interesting week, and I'm not big on news, but I do pay attention to what's happening, right? I wouldn't call it news even. I would call it, like our current situation and circumstances, like with the world that we're living in. In leadership, I think about the brother that was leading at the University of Michigan that's no longer leading. Talk about a fall from glory. I'm thinking about what happened at Brown University. I believe there was another shooting as well. There's a lot going on. And I think then you throw in economic uncertainty, political uncertainty, geopolitical uncertainty. There can be a lot that weighs on a person's mind. outside of what it is that you want to accomplish yourself. Like you're trying to create or accomplish something in this environment. And so this conversation today, what I want to do is I want to integrate what we've talked about. Leadership commitment, courage, because I think it's so necessary right now. We're going to talk a lot about vision today and innovation. And I want to invite you to give me phone calls, reflect on the series, and most importantly, what I want us to do is to begin resetting our direction as we prepare for 2026. Like, it's an opportunity to reset direction as we prepare for 2026. I think the first question we have to ask ourselves, like going back to the 4 pillars, is if I feel stuck in my health and well-being, then what am I committed to? If you recall, one of the first things we talked about was leadership commitment and guiding principles. So then the question becomes, because I'm gonna follow this same framework for you all in terms of how we begin really taking our lives to the next level in 2026. And the foundation, as we know, is vision. But then let's look through the 4 pillars. It's like, okay, if my health is off, I feel stuck in my health. What am I really committed to in my health? Like, what is that deep, anchored commitment? Or is there one at all? Maybe I'm just committed to feeling okay. And that could be, backed by some foundational belief. And Slay Your Goals, we've been talking about this, foundational beliefs. And so because I'm just committed to feeling okay, like taking my health to the next level. And what is taking your health to the next level? Like really, really digging into my nutrition, avoiding things I know that aren't good for me. Like all those things. And especially for those of us who are, young, like this is the time, man. I mean, this is really the time. But what am I committed to building over my lifetime? If I'm a young woman, if I'm a young man, what am I committed to building over my lifetime? If you're more mature, what am I committed to building now? What am I committed to transforming now about my health, about my emotional fitness, about my overall mental dexterity, my ability to learn, my intellect? Like, what am I committed to? More importantly, the relationship I have with myself. And I think this is the piece when you talk about health and well-being, and then I ask a question like, what are you committed to building over time? I would say, I would reframe it when it comes to health and well-being is what type of relationship are you committed to having with yourself? Like, what type of relationship are you committed to having with yourself? Is it a loving and honest relationship? And when I say honest, like you're clear about what's going on. Like you admit to yourself what's going on. Like you're honest. And then if you're loving and it's not helping you, that means that commitment calls you to do something about it. Right? Think about who you love or what you love. Right? If it's in danger, you feel called, you feel compelled, there's a passion to do something about it. And so, what is your relationship with yourself when you look at that first pillar? Second pillar, relationship and love. Again, I'm going to call you back to what is the relationship you have with yourself? Because for those of us who are in a relationship, then almost always when you move to the second pillar, folks will say, well, if they just. But then my question to you is, have you handled everything for yourself? Because maybe if you just, in terms of how you show up for you, how you love you, then it could pull things in order for your relationship. Something to think about, right? It always starts with us. But what is that deep commitment that you have to yourself, to loving yourself, both in pillar number 1, health and well-being, and in pillar number 2? For individuals who intend to be in relationship, I would say that pillar number 1, what is the relationship I have with myself? Where is my self-love? Is the question that in many ways, when you're committed to that and you create what you have a vision of, it actually invites romance into your life. Because now I can teach you how to love me because I learned how to love me myself. Or I can avoid people who don't love me because of the love I have for myself. You can't treat me like that. You can't talk to me like that. You can't, It's funny, last night I was talking to my barber. He was asking me, he said, "Hey man, you watched this Diddy documentary?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's one of those things where you just like, I probably should. I just want to see what's going on." The thing that I noticed over and beyond anything else was the lack of self-love in the victims, male and female. The men he called friends who he took advantage of, the women that maybe he was in relationship. I was just like, I was blown away by how he could sniff it out and manipulate and use them. I was just like, I was blown away by it. I was like, man. And my barber and I, we were talking, and he was like, if you encounter, he asked me, if you encounter him, like, how do you think it would have went? And I said, it wouldn't have like, I think after meeting the guy, I'd be like, nah, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? Like, it couldn't go any further. Like, I don't care who you are, but what? Because of how I revere myself and the God in me. It's like, no, I don't care who you are. You can't talk like that. You can't, And so, going back to this thing of self-love, in many ways, how can I have a vision for anything else? Work and money. I want to take my career to the next level. I want to take my finances to the next level. If it's not anchored in the relationship you have with yourself. Because many of us are suffering. And I believe the reason why we allow the suffering is because we do not have a good relationship with ourselves. The only way I could put this is, I have 2 children. It's like, children, those of us who have them, it's like your heart existing outside your body and being in places that you're not, right? I've shared before that, like, my relationship with God went to a whole new level after having children, because it was like, I think sometimes we, especially as men, little martial arts training, you stay in the gym, you feel like, I can protect myself, worst case scenario, right? And then I'm wise enough to avoid certain situations, 3 or 4 men down, and you're like, let me go this way instead, right? So it's like, and then a few prayers, like, God, watch over me where I can't see. And I feel like, for me, I'm okay. But my children, like, they're, in school and other places, and it's an extension of me. Like, my heart is outside of myself. And the love I have for them, if they were suffering, there's not much I wouldn't do to ensure that I could stop that suffering in whatever capacity. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to link it back to how often we suffer. Okay? So if I feel that way about my children, shouldn't it start with me and my suffering? Like, if I am suffering in any capacity, if I'm suffering in my health, there's nothing I wouldn't do to stop that. Nothing. Right? I would fast. I would cleanse. Because of my self-love. If I'm suffering in my relationship, there's nothing I wouldn't do to stop that suffering. If I'm suffering on the job, there's nothing I wouldn't do to stop that suffering. If I'm suffering in my finances, there's nothing I wouldn't do to stop that suffering. If I'm suffering in my spiritual connection, there's nothing I wouldn't do to create a better connection. And if that's not the case, then in a lot of ways, one of the reasons we're stuck is because of how we hold ourselves, how we revere ourselves, how we love ourselves. And are we loving ourselves at the same level in the way that the Creator loves us. By the way, there's some commentary going on about Diddy. Don't forget the Maya Angelou quote where she said, if we are all human, therefore nothing human can be alien to me. Don't forget that. It's real easy to look at something like that and go, that's horrible. That is horrible. But we are all human. Therefore, nothing human can be alien to me. Like, if he could do it, you could do it. If he could do it, I could do it. Like, we're all human. We all have the capacity. Let's be clear. What am I committed to building? What am I committed to building in my health? What am I committed to building in my relationship? What am I committed to building in my vocation, my purpose, my finances, my spiritual connection? Like, what am I committed to? Like, that's the first thing we talked about, was commitment and guiding principles. And here's the thing, that commitment must be anchored. I want you to think about the word anchored. Like steadfast, stuck, bolted. Like I could think all the words, like something is, like it's not moving, right? Connected, welded. That commitment must be welded to a vision. Like that. Otherwise, the commitment will collapse under pressure. And if the times we live in aren't producing pressure, I don't know what experience you're having. I think we all feel the pressure in some capacity. So I think we have this backwards, many of us. Most of us, we feel the uncertainty. We feel the pressure of uncertainty. And so we become committed to navigating that or surviving that. Let's say maybe surviving that. And the focus goes there versus actually pushing the uncertainty to the side and focusing on what am I committed to? With everything going on, who am I? And what am I committed to? What am I committed to? Who am I? Who do I intend to be, no matter which way the government goes, the economy flows, my relationship feels? Like who am I committed to being? Commitment. And what I find is that most of us are reacting to what's happening around us because we haven't decided, we haven't dedicated ourselves to become committed in a particular area of our lives. Like, committed. And the area I'm talking about is my life's purpose, commitment. This is where it all springs from. I think many times, well, most of us like shortcuts, right? And then because we like shortcuts, if we perceive there's a shortcut in life, I think often we'll take that. Because the way I'm talking about, it's not easy. Like, it's not easy. Here's the problem. There just aren't any other shortcuts. Like, there's no way around it. Like, you have to get clear on your reason for being. So what happens is most of us are reacting to our circumstance, the situations, the uncertainty, rather than coming from a deep place of commitment. Who am I committed to being? And what am I committed to doing in this lifetime? So we started with leadership commitment. We started with commitment. Even if you're not a leader, it starts with commitment. Commitment, and based on that commitment, guiding principles. My cousin, I was talking to one of my cousins, and he was just kind of like, hey, man, like, what's to you? You always seem to be the same way. And he wasn't saying it in a bad way. You know, we were watching the game together last Sunday, and a few things happened, and my responses are predictable, right? It's like, you always seem to be the same way. And I was like, look, man, I'm doing the best I can to align myself with the Creator. And he was like, yeah. Like, it didn't sound foreign to him at all. Like, that's it. That's all. I'm not perfect, but the reason why you can see patterns is because that's part of my commitment. Like, number one commitment in my life is my relationship with the Creator. Like, that's it, right? And everything else is weighed on that. Number two, then follows my purpose, right? The second commitment I have in my life is aligned with the purpose the Creator gave me for living. So then it's like everything revolves around that, secondarily, right? The third commitment is the covenant I made with my wife. Third. There's a whole lot that she doesn't have to go through because of the first two commitments. Not because she's, I think she's an amazing woman, but that doesn't keep a man. Okay? We got plenty of examples of that. I can call the names out. Like amazing women whose husbands have strayed. Right? That's not what keeps a man. What keeps a man are the first two. Great dating questions, ladies. What are your top commitments? I'm just trying, and I told him that's my aim. Commitment. So then if that's my aim, no matter what happens, if that's my core commitment, no matter what happens, no matter the environment, then I have a go-to. I hope this is making sense for everybody. I have a go-to. What are you committed to? Now, if that's, let's say, the foundation, like your commitment is the foundation, it's the anchor. And like I said a moment ago, that without vision, commitment collapses, then that means that based on those two things, I see something. I see something. And hopefully I'm taking this, like, hopefully you guys are really getting where I'm going. So the reason why I maintain those commitments is because I see something. I see something as a result of the commitment I have to my spiritual connection to the Creator, right? Like I see something is available to me, and I can see it in my mind's eye. And what I see is what guides me, right, in my decision making, because I don't want to lose sight of that. When it comes to my purpose, I see something. The vision. And without that vision, my commitment will collapse under the pressure of the world. I really want you to, but because I see it, because I see the vision, when the pressure comes, I'm able to withstand that pressure because of what I see. So then my question becomes, like, what do you see for yourself? And I think this is the linchpin and the place where we really need to spend some time. Now, what happens is my vision begins to answer certain questions. And for my leaders, I really want you to hear this. And even if you don't call yourself a leader, it begins to answer certain questions around who should be included in the future I'm creating. Who should be included? Because not everybody should be included, and there might be some people who should be included that you naturally wouldn't include. Like if you didn't have this vision, you wouldn't include them. It's a bit uncomfortable. It's a bit out of your, comfort zone, or these people aren't familiar to you. They're not similar to you. They require that you stretch. So if you recall the second part of the series, we went into inclusive leadership. Like all this plays out in life too, I'm telling you. Anybody that's successful, that this is the track they're on. So who should I include in my future that I see? And without vision, then this idea of inclusion, because it's so foreign to us, right? It doesn't align. If you recall that part of the teaching, like human beings, like it's not normal for us to go outside of our comfort zone, especially with other people. I rather deal with those that are familiar. And so without vision, inclusion becomes optional instead of strategic. Let me give you a place for inclusion. Many of us are navigating life and we refuse to include someone that can support us and develop us because it's uncomfortable. We refuse it. We refuse to vulnerably allow somebody to have a perspective into our lives, whether it's a coach, a therapist, whomever, where they can help us refine ourselves to some capacity. We refuse it. I don't want to include that. That's uncomfortable. That doesn't seem what's the right word for it? It doesn't flow well. It disrupts my days when I have those kind of conversations. I don't want to include that. I would rather remain comfortable and exclude that. I don't want to feel any type of discomfort. And so, I'm not ready for inclusion. And I'm going to come back to this after the break, because I think this idea of inclusion, we only, different people and my teams and all. It's not just that. It's like, who are you allowing behind the veil? Who's included to come behind the veil with you? The other day, I saw this woman. She was driving a little, one of the smaller Jeeps. I think it's like a Compass or something. And she pulled into the space to park, and she got stuck. The truck got stuck, and she's, trying to turn it, and this is like the wheels are just spinning. And I'm sitting in my truck watching her, and I'm like, if she could get out the spot, she just, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, man, so I'm like, well, do you leave the lady here? Like just spinning her wheels. It's on the south side of Chicago. So I got out my truck and I said, hey, you need some help? She's like, yeah, I got stuck. And I was like, well, are you willing to let me get behind the wheel? Right? She had to make a decision though. And see, this is the thing when I'm talking about how often do we let somebody into that vulnerable space to help us get unstuck? Are you willing? I asked her, are you willing to let me get behind the wheel? And she was like, she kind of had that look on her face, and then she kind of looked me up and down. And then she looked back to see what I got out of. She's like, okay. She had to make that, I trust, okay, I can trust you to come into a vulnerable space. My vehicle in the wintertime, ain't a lot of people around. She's like, okay, it's all right. And so I got into her truck, shifted the gears, boom, got her out. It's a matter of skill in that case, right? That was it. I have a skill to get you unstuck because I've been stuck before. And I know what it feels like to get stuck like that. And I also know how to get out of that type of a situation. Right? So she allowed it to happen. And it didn't take a minute. It was like 30 seconds. I got the truck out. Let her get back up. I said, you want to park here? Was you trying to park here? She's like, well, should I? And I was like, well, I can put you in the spot, and then when you leave, don't cut your wheel. Just drive through. You know what I mean? Like, just drive straight through. She's like, oh, okay. And I was like, let me show you. And I actually I pulled it up and out, and then I backed it back in. I said, so now you got those tire paths. Just pull it straight through. She's like, okay, I can do it. All right, great. Got her unstuck. I don't even know her name. We ain't even, it's just like, all right, have a good day, But she had to allow someone else, like talking about inclusive, like if she could have picked that day not to have anybody else behind driver wheel, I think she would have been like, I would much prefer no one else, but I'm stuck. Hey, if you're enjoying what you're watching right now, do me a quick favor. I want you to hit the like button and make sure you subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to tap the notification bell so you never miss when we drop new content. Seriously, it means the world that you're here. Thanks for watching, and let's get back to it. When it comes to getting unstuck in our lives, especially for those of us who are men, brothers, like, man, it's tough to give up the wheel. I tell the story when my life really started to change with coaching. But I want you all to understand how difficult it was to allow someone else behind the curtain. Man, that was not easy. I remember even after I had that inspired feeling in the sales process when they were telling me what would happen and how they would support me, where I was like, okay, and I put the money down. I remember walking to my car afterwards, sitting there like, what did you just do? And I wanted to renege on the whole thing. Because it does not feel comfortable to be inclusive in that way. To actually allow someone else to guide you, to look behind the curtain and say, well, what about this? Because a lot of us would say, well, don't mess with that. Don't leave that alone. That's how I've always been. That's how my family is. That's how we all are. I don't know how to be another way. I've always been that way. But what if that has you stuck? And what if someone else could give you some perspective simply by seeing behind the curtain if you include them in your process? Whew. And it's not easy. Every time I've done that, whether it's in my business, like I feel man. Even the coach I have now, I remember when we first started working together about 2 years ago, he started asking questions. So what's your revenue? What did you make last year? What's your quarterly revenue? I'm like, man, I don't know you like that, bro. Man. But I had to remember the commitment and the picture that came with the commitment. I'm looking to go somewhere. So I gave him the answers. And it wasn't because I was embarrassed by the answers. It's just like, that's not something I just share with anybody and everybody. So inclusive leadership doesn't require that you lead people. It requires that you know where you intend to take yourself, because you are the leader of you first and foremost. And if you intend to take yourself somewhere, inclusive leadership is still necessary because you will need foreign support. Foreign support meaning outside of yourself. The beauty of foreign support is that it broadens your thinking. And narrow thinking creates fragile outcomes. You're not prepared for everything. You can't see all the lanes. But somebody else is like, what about this? What about that? You're looking like, I hadn't thought about those things. And so it broadens your thinking in a way that creates a more concrete outcome. But narrow thinking creates fragile outcomes. I want to put this a different way. If right now your health is fragile, it is the result of narrow thinking. It might be time to be open to new perspectives. Well, I have doctor after doctor, doctor. Okay, well, that's the only lane you've been in? If your relationship is struggling, it's fragile right now, it might be because of narrow thinking. Like, you might need to broaden your thought process. Your finances. If your finances are fragile, it's likely because of narrow thinking. Like, you need to, broaden how you think about your financial scope, your financial life, your financial support. I could keep going. So I want you to think of this idea of inclusion as an intelligence, not an ideology. It's an intelligence. It's an ability to make intelligent decisions outside of what you feel. I have never felt like allowing someone into the secrets and the shadows of my life. Yet, that is how I've progressed in my life. And even if you're successful, if you haven't allowed that level of vulnerability, imagine where you could really be and where you could really go if you broaden your thinking. Okay. Now, what that takes is courage. And courage is sourced through vision. Because what you're really asking yourself is, what future am I willing to protect at all costs? What future am I willing to protect at all cost, even if it makes me feel uncomfortable? Even if I have to get up every Saturday and spend an entire day. Like, here's the other thing. The courage to actually give time to something. Most of us will not give our time to the things that will take us to the next level. But we will give our time to all types of entertainment and foolishness. But I'll give you a perfect example. Like, I pray December 27th doesn't feel like it feels today. How committed are you? Can you see the picture for your life that you are taking actions to create? Because unfortunately, many of us are circumstantial. Like, it's like, ooh, it's cold today. I ain't going nowhere. I'm not. I said I would, but nope. Without really asking ourselves, wait a second. What vision do I have for my life in 2026? What can I see for myself? And what future am I willing to protect and act on at any cost? And for most of us, the cost is just a little discomfort. Not big, just some discomfort. But without vision, courage becomes avoidance disguised as patience. I'll wait. You know what? Next time. We ran over the Black Friday, we ran a special, and we got a lot going on as a team, because I was like, well, maybe what can we do? But we ran a special and on Slayer Goals. The last time you could get it for $37. Now, Slayer Goals existed for almost the last 10 years. I mean, I dropped the book in 2016. I started the membership the year after. So it's going on 10 years. When I first started, it was a $24 membership. Still got some folks paying that. Then it went up to $37. I can't tell you how many emails I got from people. Oh, I missed the email. I've been meaning to do this. I've been meaning to do it. But without vision, courage becomes avoidance disguised as patience. I'm like, I was going to do it. And then I want you to think about the things you can be patient about. Like most of us are impatient in every other aspect of our lives, but when it comes to our development, we got time. When it comes to our healing, we got time. And then some of us will say, ain't nothing wrong. But if we look at what's happening in your life, it says something different. It says that you're wounded. It says that you need healing. It says that you need support. We could look at your health. We could look at your relationships. We can look at your money. Like, something needs to happen. But I don't have time for development. And somebody might say, well, now, the cost. Well, they're free products. I mean, I've talked about ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. It's free. It just requires that you prioritize it and give time to it. Most folks, it's uncomfortable. Or I don't have time for that. But you're spinning in the same wheel. Like, your business is still struggling. But you don't have time to go heal. But you're in a cycle. A lot of times I think we see courage as this trait, as a personality trait of some sort. And it's not that. Courage is simply the ability to see where you intend to go under pressure. And what you see is so attractive that despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, you take action to go there. Courage is really just clarity. A man that is willing to die for his family is just clear. He's clear on the future that he's not willing to live. I'm not willing to be with myself knowing that I cowered and allowed something to happen to my... Like, what good is living past this point if I have to live with the reality that I cowered and failed my family? And so now I'm the only one. I don't want to live like that. It's so clear to me. Most men, I think, would be like, nah, I'm good. I would rather die in the fight displaying courage than to cower and survive to be on the other side to have to be with that. I don't even want that. I don't even want that reality. And it's so clear to me that I will put my life on the line for my family because I can't see anything else. So then often I believe we see courage as this attribute that arrives. But courage is really the consequence of seeing something clearly. I see it so clearly, there's really no other choice. When a young man runs into battle, you say, is he displaying courage or is he just foolish? He sees something. It could be the admiration of his peers that he sees in that moment. But he sees something. It could be the pain of a court martial from his superiors if he doesn't. But he sees something. And that is why he goes. Because he sees something. If he can't see it, the human response becomes to cower, begin to shake and fold. But most men don't want to be seen that way, nor do they see themselves that way. So it is what they see that pushes them into the fray. How much more is it with what it is you want to achieve in life? Most of us don't have the courage to push on that thing, not because we're cowards, but because we're not clear. I'm curious, if one day someone was to tell a story about your leadership, what type of story would it be? Would it be a story you could be proud of? Or would it be a story that, brought shame? If I'm in a room and somebody says, I want to tell you a story about Linnell Harris, does my heart start to pound real hard, or do I get optimistically curious? What story am I telling people about who I intend to become? And by the way, that story is based in a vision. Abraham Lincoln had a very clear vision, which is one of the reasons he's one of the most noted presidents of this country. When you don't have a vision, you will comply. Oh, man. I want you to hear this, because we saw this happen during the pandemic. Like, leaders laid down. When you're not clear, you will comply. Without vision, people comply. They don't commit. Without vision, people comply. They don't commit. Why? Because the only way to navigate pressure is because I see something else clearly. Put a little financial pressure on them, compliance. Put a little health scare on them, compliance. This is why we got to be in front of the game. Like, I'm not trying to figure out my health during a health crisis. I want to figure it out now. When the health crisis comes, I already got a vision. Well, I'm already operating on a system. What y'all saying I need to do? Yeah, I don't know about that. Let me pray about that first. Where Dr. So-and-so said, yeah, Dr. So-and-so is a man who happened to have to get pardoned recently. Whew, man. I mean, like, what's my game plan? What is before it happens? What's my financial vision before it happens? So what we learned in inspirational leadership is how Lincoln led with moral clarity rather than charisma. And I want you to think about this. Like, he was not a charismatic speaker. Like, the guy, go read the Emancipation Proclamation. You're not motivated, like crazy motivated after that. Right? But he was clear. He had a vision. He did paint a vision. Now, here's the problem with inspiration. And this is why inspiration requires vision. Inspiration will give you the energy to move in a direction without meaning. Vision gives you meaning. So I need both inspiration and vision. When we talk about uncertainty, vision doesn't remove uncertainty. What it does is it gives you direction in uncertainty. And what I want to talk about with the time we have left is, how do we create personal alignment and move forward with clarity? So, among all this, I had the book signing, and one of the things we talked about was Nature's Leadership Code and this idea of instinctive authority. Now, vision provides the answer to what instincts I should trust right now. I think somebody's going to listen to this twice and it's going to like really click. Like, vision, because as human beings, I just got this, somebody sent me this information recently. A friend of mine knows I'm into animals, and he sent me this science study. And they studied chimpanzees and gorillas, and what they found is, like, scientists could teach chimpanzee and gorilla sign language, right? And so they can communicate with them. And one of the things that scientists began to realize, like in giving sign language, is that they had all the questions and the chimps and the gorillas had no questions. So they begin to derive, and by the way, I just learned this myself. They begin to derive, like, wait a second. One of the key differences, right, because they share 98% of our DNA, like we share, 98%, but that 2% is key, because that 2% is the difference between where an animal, like a gorilla, would just follow instincts, and we question. So the big difference between us and chimpanzees and gorillas, there was a lot of differences, but you all get the point. I'm talking about in terms of DNA. Like the real thing that we can see, the two I'm going to call out is one, we're created in the image of the Creator. And two, we ask questions. It's kind of gotten us in trouble too. You want the apple? Right? Which I think is a lot deeper than that. But you get the point. We ask questions. And so even when our instincts are telling us to do something, our lack of clarity will cause us to ask a whole lot of questions. And what I'm suggesting is that your vision answers the question of what instinct you should follow in the moment. We have this idea of instinct, right? And what happens is, without vision, people chase goals that are disconnected from their identity. At the masterclass, I always show the same chart every time around the power of an aligned goal. What do I mean around the power of an aligned goal? Well, one of the reasons many of us aren't successful in the goal-setting process is because we keep trying to do what others suggest. Oh, you should do this. This is a profitable business. Or you should do that. You should get into this. You can do that. And it never comes out the way we thought it would, because that's not who you be. That's not who you were created. That's not what you were created to do. And we're trying to figure out, why is it aligned? Why aren't things adding up? The reason it's not adding up is because you haven't taken your life's purpose seriously yet. Because when you create goals in alignment with that, you can't help but to stumble into greatness. And but here's the thing. It's not going to be easy. But let me tell you what else is not easy. Setting goals that are misaligned and putting your life into them. That's not easy either. So what I do know is we don't all lead the same way. We have these instinctive ways of being because we were created to have particular purposes. And so you have an instinctive authority. The idea is that you begin to gain some level of awareness. That's what I'm committed to, is providing awareness. That's why I'm here on Sundays, to provide awareness. That's part of my life's calling. And so the idea becomes that I'm aligning myself with my reason for being, which then means that I can, when I'm clear on my reason for being and the vision for that, then my vision will inform the instincts that come up for me. Like, oh yeah, this is what I naturally feel, and that's how I should play.
Mr. Mussolini, he was a dictator over in Italy. Mm-hmm. He said, there is a violence that liberates people. There is a violence that enslaves people. And there is a violence that is moral. There is a violence that is immoral. But there will be violence. There's no way around it. Mm-hmm. The white supremacists have set this world up for violence. You must do violence. If you can't do violence, game over. And I'd like to hear your response on that.
For those who aren't familiar, Benito Mussolini was the dictator over Italy, I believe, during World War I all the way up to about almost World War II. think he was overthrown, by the way, in about 1943. And so he had about a 20-year or so reign. Not a nice man. And I believe his comments were really around justifying his actions, because we could look it up. How many people did Mussolini kill? Let's look it up. Violence. Yeah, he's responsible for the deaths of roughly 1 million people. Here's my comments to that. You know, the total includes victims from internal political violence, colonial genocides, mostly in Africa, and war crimes committed during World War II. Okay, so here's my response to that. And I really want you all to hear me on this. We have to understand that there are people who are willing to exert control and pressure by all means necessary. And the reason they're willing to exert control in that way is because they've been given a dark vision that's very clear. A dark vision. I want to be clear about that. The law of polarity states that there are only two major energies, positive and negative. If you believe in the Almighty, then that means good and evil. And for those of us who consider ourselves good, this is one of the reasons it is of the utmost importance that we are clear on the vision the Creator is giving us, so we can execute that vision with the same level of violence. What do I mean by that? When we look at the definition of the word violence, right? Because I want us to be very clear. It is a behavior involving physical force that is intended to hurt, damage, or kill someone or something. I've gotten questioned about this idea of murder mediocrity, right? And the reason why I haven't really changed my stance on it is because there is a dark force that is willing to encompass us and arrest us and hold us so that we become victims. And we have to use the goodness, the light, the power of the Creator in the same way. Physical force. If you read the Gospels in the New Testament, there was a point where Yeshua became violent. He saw what they were doing in the synagogue, and he exerted physical force and the intent to hurt and damage. He had a whip, right? He wasn't like, y'all stop. He was like, how dare you? Now, I want you to imagine something. Since we know there are dark forces that are willing to be violent against us, how much more should those of us who believe that we are backed by the goodness of God and by the Creator himself extend some level of force, like some level of energetic capacity towards what we know to be right? And I believe that all too often, like, many of us will sit on our hands and are like, oh, I don't know. And we have plenty of examples. I even went to the Gospels around where we have the latitude to be forceful and to execute in a way that we believe will create the goodness that we all want to happen on this earth. Vision answers what I am moving toward when the path isn't clear. I know I'm in the fog, but when I look at the compass, my true north, my purpose, and my vision, I know I'm headed in the right direction. I don't know what's going to pop out a moment from now, but I know I'm headed in the right direction, right? Vision answers what I'm moving toward when the path isn't clear. Without vision, what happens is I begin to overthink, right? I begin to play the script of all the directions I can go, and that replaces my progress. Again, why is vision important? Because it clarifies the path even in the fog. And this is where faith comes in. Like, you may not always know, I'm taking this step. I don't know what's in front of this step. I don't know if I'm going to slip and fall, but I'm going to take these steps because I know I'm supposed to go in this direction. And if I fall, I intend to fall in that direction too. We talked about innovation last week, innovate to elevate. And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that one. But vision answers what must change for the future I want to exist. And remember, what I talked about last week is that it's all anchored in my commitments. What am I committed to? What am I committed to? It's all anchored in that. Without vision, innovation becomes nothing more than random activity, risky activity. And I believe what happens is there are some of us who have tried to innovate, but we didn't innovate in alignment with a very clear vision. And so we failed and we told ourselves never again. Don't take any more risk. Like, just be safe. And it's like, well, when you did innovate and when you did risk, was it aligned with a vision that is also aligned with your life's purpose in terms of who you're supposed to be on the planet? So, man, let me ask you this. What parts of your future feel unclear? That's where you want to focus the vision. Think of a camera. If you turn health and well-being is unclear, I need to spend some time here honing the vision. You look at relationship, okay, that seems to be unclear. I need to spend some time here honing the vision. Financially, I think most of us believe we're clear financially because we got a number in our mind. This is where I want to get. But for what? What does it look like? Who will you be? Who will you? What friends would you lose? Yeah. Do you realize that every time you leave a plateau and go to another level, that you have to leave people behind? Not because you want to. Some of them are going to let you go. Oh, okay, you think you all that. Are you ready for that? Are you so clear that it doesn't matter? It could be simple. You could let me tell you something. I have lost friends as a result of publishing a book. Like, folks ain't talking to me. What did I do? Only thing I think of is I wrote a book. That's the only thing that's changed this year. I ain't talked to them. Like, there's been no contact. Like, they're like, man, this guy, for whatever reasons. Guess what? It's okay. Does it hurt? Yeah. But I'm clear. I'm going to keep creating in alignment with what the Creator gives me. And I guess I'm leaving you behind in 2025. Are you ready for that? Like, are you so clear that it doesn't matter? What parts of your future feel unclear? And what should you be seeing differently? I'm going to close with this. The questions I would be asking myself this week: who am I committed to being? What courage is required in my life next? What future am I building? Like, what future am I building? And number 4 is, what is one step I can take this week to get clear? Thank you for watching Inspirational Perspective. If you love this show and you want to see more content like this, you can go right here. And if you like this subject and you want to see much more content that we have available for you, just click the button here. As always, thanks for watching. Be sure to watch the show live, 7 a.m. every Sunday morning on WBON Radio, or you can catch it right here on YouTube or Facebook.com/Coach Liddell Harris. Be sure to hit that like button. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so we can get more content just like this to you.